As the IDF and the educators begin their journey into Poland, their path leads first to this Jewish cemetery outside the city of Łódź. Here, in the so-called ghetto field, rest the thousands who died in the Lodz Ghetto that the Germans created after their invasion of 1939. Before then, many of these nameless casualties had no doubt been proud residents of Łódź, a prosperous city with a rich heritage in the arts and sciences, and where every third citizen was Jewish, some of whom built monuments like this.
A very important figure in every community is the rich man. Why is he such an important figure in the community?
He can support all the poor people.
Exactly. Money makes the world go round. That's the truth. Exactly. And one of the most important people was Poznański. Okay, Poznański, as you can tell by his grave, was very, very well-to-do.
But after 1939, there were no more monuments. As for the surviving ghetto residents who did not die here, the Radegast was their next stop.
Radegast is actually the train station connecting the ghetto to the outside. The first thing people do when they come here is they want to enter. And before we enter, I stand here for 1 minute. And when I stand here, before I talk about what happened here, I just want you people to think for one moment. Entering this car is not going to be the same. We can touch, but we cannot know. We can touch, but we cannot feel. Because when we enter this car, we're not going to hear the sounds. We're not going to smell the smells. We're not going to hear the screams. We're not going to feel the feelings. We won't be scared of not coming home. We won't feel helpless when we see our children dying of thirst. We won't feel completely humiliated. We won't feel completely in fear. We won't feel like this is the end.
In September 1942, Chaim Romkowski, the Nazi-appointed mayor of the Lodz Ghetto, made a chilling announcement.
And he turns to the people in the ghetto and he says to them these things. The ghetto has been struck in a very hard way. They demand what is most dear to us, children and old people. In my old age, I am forced to stretch out my hands and to beg, brothers and sisters, give me them. Fathers and mother, give me your children. Give me your children so we can save other people. For each Jewish family, for each parent, there aren't any other people. There's just his child under the age of 10. How can he give his child? And the next day, starting the next day, the ghetto was completely sealed off. People were not allowed to walk the streets, and the Germans walk from house to house, take all the people out of the house, and start sorting out the sick, the old, and the children.
Then the sick, the old, and the children were taken to a new place called Chelmno.
I don't want to talk about the Lodz Ghetto yet. I want to talk about the people who come here on December 8th of 1941. December 8th of 1941, a group of Jews was gathered up in the Kolo Ghetto. And they had no reason to think that this is an exceptional kind of thing because there were gatherings in the ghettos, in all ghettos in this area. They would gather the people up, round them up, and send them to work in different labor camps. And they enter this place, this insignificant place. They enter through a gate. And after they enter, the gate is locked. And here starts a completely different story. Now remember, they know nothing about this place. Once they get off the trucks, one of the German SS men working here greets them. He says, you're going to be sent to labor camps in Germany and in Austria. Before you enter, before we send you, we want you to have to be clean, disinfected. This makes a lot of sense. You have to remember that the conditions they lived in the ghettos were not sufficient enough. I mean, diseases, people were constantly getting sick, crowdedness and everything. And they enter this building not knowing where they're going. This whole process is being dealt with pretty calmly. I mean, no screaming, no shouting, nothing out of the ordinary. This ends when they enter the building. And after they enter the building and undressed, they were rushed through the corridor. They ran through the corridor. At the end of the corridor, there was a ramp. Now, there was force, there was screaming, there was yelling. They rushed into what seemed to them at that point a very small room. Once about, depending on the size of the truck, 20, 30, or 40 people were in the truck. The doors were slammed and locked. And the truck started traveling towards the forest. Now you have to understand this is not an ordinary truck. We're talking about a truck that was, it seemed like a mover's truck, okay? An ordinary truck used to move furniture from place to place, but the exhaust was attached to the inside of the truck. And as they were driving, they were actually breathing in the gas from the car. By the time they arrived at the forest, nobody was alive. 20 minutes. Jewish prisoners would take out the bodies and bury them in mass graves. Then towards the end, they dug up all the graves and burnt them, simply because they didn't want to leave any sign of what happened here, okay? The Germans worked in like a double standard. On the one hand, they were sure they were saving the world from the horribleness of the Jews. On the other hand, they kept trying to hide the secret, okay? Because the world won't understand what we're doing here, because the world isn't capable of understanding the greatness of its action. So they burnt the bodies.
One of those who knew the German secret was Simon Sirabrunik. Here he is in 1977, returning to the place where at age 14, he was forced to unload and burn prisoners' bodies, until the Germans decided to close Chelmno, but not before executing the remaining prisoners. Soon, it was Simon's turn.
He's so petrified, a young kid. When they shoot him, he's shaking so much that the bullet doesn't go to his head, it just reaches his jaw. He realizes that he can't move, because if he moves, they'll shoot him again. So after they leave, he literally drags himself to one of the Polish houses, and the Polish guy hides in there until the end of the war, which is a few days later.
He was one of only 3 prisoners known to survive this death camp. 3 out of at least 150,000 who died here. In 1945, his testimony helped convict Chelmno's German guards of war crimes. Some were hanged, some went to prison. So for him, perhaps, the best revenge was living, to tell his story.
Schwer zu erkennen, aber das war hier. Da waren gebrannt Leute, viele Leute waren hier verbrannt. Ja, das ist das Platz.
The understanding that when we talk about this place, we talk about kids arriving here completely alone. The fact that 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 5-month-olds, 1.5-year-old kids arrived here completely alone, with nobody to hug them, with nobody to kiss them, with nobody to take care of them, and even practically thinking, how did these kids get on the bus? Who put them on the bus? How did they get on the bus? How did they get off the train? And one of the things that we know about the Lodz Ghetto is that there were lists. And I want to give each one of you a name from one of the lists of the kids that were sent here in September of 1942. And I want us to stand in a circle. And I want each and every one of us to read this name.
Esther Kistenberg, 1-year-old.
David Lilienthal, 1.5 years old.
Itka Epstein, 3 years old.
Tamara Kishton, 5 months old.
Chaim Kuznitsky's name will not be read here, even though he spent 4 years as a child in the Lodz Ghetto. He is now an honored witness, testifying and traveling with the IDF officers and the educators on their journey. They will learn his story of surviving the ghetto, 3 different concentration camps, and a death march. before being liberated and making Aliyah. In Palestine, he joined the battle against the British, was wounded, jailed, escaped, and then rejoined the war for Israel's independence. Born in 1928 and now living in Israel, he has truly walked the walk. Now he stands shoulder to shoulder with the soldiers beneath the flag of the nation he helped create. The next day, it's a visit to the only synagogue out of 400 in Warsaw that survived the war. It is a solemn, sacred place, not where you'd expect all joy to break loose, unless it happens to be the 82nd birthday of Chaim Kuznitsky. Mazel tov.
It happened in Poland, where the Jewry, the number of Jews in Poland is very, very small. It was a wonderful event because there were so many dark points on this trip. It was just wonderful to be able to celebrate a high point, not only with the Israeli military, but with this one survivor.
A synagogue filled with joy is vanishingly rare in Poland these days. But once it was common, especially in Lublin, once known as the Jerusalem of the Kingdom of Poland. That Jerusalem ended here. Next on The Journey.